Uh,
Hello, everyone. Another day, another week, another rankings. Um, at the end of the last rankings, we started to say it's a double eviction.
but I
Um,
cut us off
as we
for
forgot about
suspense
it
purposes.
until the last second again. Um, but we did it. Um, quite an interesting double to say the least. Um,
Oh,
and with it, I am left extremely high on the end game prospects that the season could bring. I don't know about you, Steven, but of the 7 people that we've got remaining in the game, truthfully, there isn't any one of them that I wouldn't understand how they won this. Like, you know what I mean? I
mhm.
think all 7 have a shot to win. Don't get me wrong, some larger than others, some certainly larger than others, but the season doesn't have a 0% chance of winning floater that people can drag to the end, or someone that people just like will not give their votes to because they didn't do anything or they can't make a case. I feel like everyone has a case to make, and it's a question of who's going to be able to outmaneuver their way there. So, at least for my rankings, I think if you were to look back at this compared to the rankings of past seasons, for me, I think this is going to be one of the highest average rankings I am at least giving a cast, excluding, of course, the people that were evicted because they'll be pretty low because they're out of the game now. But I'm just very high on a lot of these players and their shots to win.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Oh wait, let's look at wah wah.
Yay. Okay, so so yes, this is our current final 7 this week. Fletcher and Caroline were unfortunately booted. Fletcher was an expected boot. Caroline, I could have seen Caroline making it a little farther. However, unfortunately for Caroline, I didn't see her making it to the finale per se. So her being cut here is not the end of the world. Heartbreaking. Looking at the little graphic, um, Luke has been up on top for 2 weeks now. Followed closely behind by Kayla and Jackson. I mean, these are the 3 people that are playing the middle and playing it the best. So not a huge shock. Um, Down at the bottom was Alex at the 1, not shocking at all either. And Joe right behind her, losing a close ally. I'm excited. Again, I think things are going to flip for me a little bit.
Me too.
Um,
Let's get
and
into
I'm
it.
excited to dive into it.
Caroline, we'll start with our evictee, our
Yes.
double evictiony.
Caroline, unfortunately, for her, I think the most likely scenario of her hitting the block was going to be next to Emily.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Was she
and
here for the veto?
did she what?
Was she here for the veto?
No.
That's super unfortunate.
Um, but I think the most likely scenario was her sitting on the block next to Emily. And with the BB snappers, that's great. If it happened to be on a week where like they were all voting, I think Caroline would have been fine. However, if anyone was going to nominate the 2 of them next to each other, it was going to be the BB snappers. And because one of them was HOH and put them up, they didn't have the numbers. And the rest of the house, being Luke, Kayla, and Jackson, is much closer with Emily because Emily just, I think, talks more than Caroline does. Um, so unfortunately, Caroline did not have the the capacity to stay next to Emily with the voters at hand. Just with the game that's been set up so far. Um, with that being said, the vote was 3-2. She was here at the last moment. However, I ultimately think that people made the right decision. I think all 5 voters made the right decision for them. I think the 3-2 split made sense. Um, so she could have stayed, I think, had she set herself up a little bit better. For me, I'm gonna bring her down to a 2. I'm not gonna give a 1 just because like there was a world where she stayed and it was a double and she got a little caught off guard, but definitely not anything above a 2 for me.
Yeah, I'm going down to a two as well. Um, I do think this was all. I mean, I wouldn't say it was like all her doing. It was unfortunate that two people from the other side won both the competitions in the double eviction. Um, but even still, like she wasn't the target by the other side. But it was
But
unfortunate that she was next to Emily, and Emily was a stronger ally for the people who she was closer with.
I just think of that side of like Caroline, Emily, Luke, Kayla, and Jackson. If everyone had to rank their allies from like closest to least closest, I think everyone except for Emily has Caroline at that bottom position. So it's not shocking that this happened.
No, so two for Caroline. But Caroline, I'm gonna miss you. You're so fun, and you're amazing. And they're putting the scores on. Okay. Okay. Rip. So sad. Started
Next,
off on the block. HOH on the block again.
oh, sorry, wait, we have moved on.
No, this is Caroline.
Okay.
No, no, no. Sorry.
Okay, now we're moving on. I'm
I was
confused.
talking about the beginning of the game.
Oh. I'm caught up now.
I'm
Yes,
late.
what a ride we've had. Okay, now moving on to
Well, you
Emily.
didn't say that before, so I was confused.
Um, Emily, Emily. Okay, so remember when I said I think everyone has a really good chance of winning the game still, and is playing really well and yada yada yada. She's like the closest thing to an exception to that. And that's with all the peace and love in the world. That's my favorite phrase, peace and love, because peace and love. But unfortunately for Emily, I don't see a world where Joe, Jason, or Faven bring Emily to the end. You know what I mean? I think Emily could likely sit in the final two, but I think it is not likely that it is against one of those three. In addition to that, I think all of Emily's votes, the people that like could vote for her, if she's next to another one of their allies that has just played better, I'm not going to beat around the bush. They're going to vote for the other person. I don't think Emily has any, with maybe the exception of Caroline, has any like super close allies that I feel like are like, no, I need to vote for Emmy if she's there, as opposed to someone else. I also just don't see her making a good case, especially when if she is in the final two, I think the BB Snap people are just gonna like flame her. So Emily's got forces working against her, but she's also not helping herself out. In terms of the game, listen, I'll be like being so real. I think the final seven people are on a very equal playing field, slightly elevated for some people, but a very equal playing field in the fact that they've all got like 3 to 4 people really on their side. Everyone's got like 1 or 2 people that is really targeting them. And it's just going to be about who wins power, who's able to navigate it, yada, yada, yada. I think that Emily has the least. This is going to sound so shady. I think Emily has the least capability to navigate herself out of it. Just my take, though, because love you, Queen. But for all that, I think that Emily has the toughest time winning the game still. I said that last week. I stand by it this week. And for me, for all those reasons, I'm going to be staying at my 4 for Emily. Um, Losing Fletcher and Caroline wasn't good for her in the slightest. Those were 2 of her 3 closest allies. But I think she's not a huge threat to people, and a lot of people would look to take her far unless your name is Faven, Jason, or Joe.
Yeah, I'm staying at my 4 as well. Um, I do think now that Caroline has like officially been evicted, I think that she is now the person who is going to have the toughest chance of winning the game. And that includes like, she almost went home this week. And there were talks about different HOHs putting her up again for eviction this week. She's not going to stop being targeted, I don't think. And then she has to get to the end too. And I don't know if I mean, to be fair, Emily has proven me wrong in some competitions. I don't know if I see season trivia being
Strong suit.
her strong suit, especially that's like the dominant competition type at the end of the season.
Especially if she's going to be competing against Luke, who's definitely been proven to write things down, Jason, who's definitely proven to write things down, Joe, who's been
So
asking questions. So
exactly. So I worry for her. I I mean, the reality of this week is that the week was, and this is obviously true every week, but this week specifically, the outcome is entirely determined by who's winning HOH. And if probably two or three people won HOH, I could have seen her hitting the block this week with a good chance of going home. That's not what happened, but going into it, that was very likely. So 4 for me.
righty.
Emmy stays at her.
Looking at the graph, she's going to be staying at that position. Yeah.
Okay. Faven.
Faven. Okay. So now that we've gotten Emily out of the way,
I had the 6, right?
yes.
Okay.
Now that we've gotten Emily out of the way, this sounds so shady.
Well, you said it. I never said that. Just for record.
I'm still gonna say it. Aside from Fletcher, who obviously was evicted, these other 6 people that we have yet to talk about are all going to have green scores from me. Because I all think that they've got very good chances of winning the game and are playing it pretty well. Of the 6, I would put Faven at 6. And that's why my score for her this week will be a 6. See what I did there?
No.
So with all that being said, I think Faven is doing a pretty good job, especially considering where she was, I think, like socially with people a few weeks ago. She slowly like worked it back. I think everyone really loves Faven. I really love Faven in terms of energy in the house chat. Love Faven. I think everyone really likes Faven except for Emily, and that's also fair. But Faven is someone that I think her likelihood of making it to the end is pretty good in terms of the fact that everyone else on her side is a bigger target than her. If people had their choice to take out Faven, Joe, or Jason, I think Faven is the bottom of that list.
See, that's interesting because I wouldn't have said that. I would say Joe is at the bottom of the list.
And I agree that that's a take. For me, it's like this. I think that it's a thing of like, of the 3, Jason's the one they all want out.
Yeah.
If they can't take out Jason, they'll take out Faven. But if Jason goes home, then I think Joe becomes the number 2 target. Is how I see it.
I don't know.
I think once
And
they
this is what I was going to bring up during these rankings, and it's hard to talk about this when we talk about Joe because Joe's the last of the 3, so it's hard to wait for that. But Joe has a pretty good relationship with Kayla. Joe has a pretty good relationship with Luke. Those are 2 people on the other side, aside from the 2 that he's working with out of 7, that I don't think would put him up. I think we'll see.
I don't think they'll put him up while Jason's still in the game.
I don't know if their perception of his game is very high, which I think is incorrect.
Their perception of Joe's game?
Yeah.
Agree, but also I think they're not underestimating the fact that say what you will about Joe's game. I think that Joe's game has been pretty good on some fronts, a little weird on other fronts, but on the whole, pretty good. But game aside, story-wise, there's no beating Joe in terms of like the path that he's had in this game. If he's able to get in the final 2 chairs, and I think they see that. I think and we'll dive into this more with Joe, but applying it to Faven right now, I think Jason is their primary target. If they can't take out Jason, they're going to take out Faven because they don't want to cross the line of putting up Joe. But I do think they don't want to go to the end with Joe. And once they cross the boundary of putting up Joe, they're going to want him out. Like, they're not going to want to put up Joe and then, like, keep him around.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Is how I see it. But anyway, and talking about Faven, I think that socially and personally, I think her jury chances are high. I think she's going to be good at articulating the game that she played, not overstating it, but certainly not understating it either. I think she'll be good at like owning what she did, the fun she had, and I think people will respect it if she's able to articulate it in a certain way. Um, in addition, she's got two people that really are rocking with her in Jason and Joe. Um, and I think the other people like respect her enough to like they have a good enough relationship with Faven to not want her out the most. You know what I mean? So I'm feeling good about Faven. Not the greatest in the whole cast. I think she's got an uphill battle compared to some other people, but a 6 is, I mean, again, like it's nitpicking at this point. I'm gonna be like saying critiques and flaws of people, but like these are all green scores moving forward. Faven, I think, has a good shot to win.
Yeah, I'm staying at my 6. Um, I was pretty confident before the HOH results that if a number of people were to win, it was going to be Jason and Faven on the block, which it is now. But um, I think that it could take. I think Jason. I agree with you. I think Jason is the primary target. People have been wanting Jason out for a long time, and his threat level has only been growing. But it only takes one thing to happen this week for Faven to be in a lot of trouble. And I think Faven goes home over Joe if they're on the block next to each other.
I don't
I would.
think they're. We'll see what happens. I don't necessarily think they're on the block next to each other. Or if they are, Joe is clearly told.
I don't think they're gonna be because Luke's not gonna. Well, at this point in time, Luke is not gonna nominate Joe.
Yeah, so I guess clearing up the context, we know that past the double eviction, Luke wins HOH.
Yes.
And again, our scores have been locked in. But yeah, at least in terms of theorizing, I see Luke targeting Jason with Faven next to him. If Jason wins the veto, maybe it's I doubt it's Emily that goes up,
I
but
would say Emily probably. Emily, and then everyone's just voting out.
everyone's voting out Faven. Yeah, that's fair.
Um, and I would argue that Faven's chances of winning are lower than a lot of people here.
I agree with that. And that's why, if you look at the scores on the grand scheme, I think the 6 is going to be on the lower end.
Me too.
But
I'm just saying in general, I think that. Well, we'll see. 6 for Faven.
all to say, I'm very pleased with Faven.
Me
And
too.
we'll see where it ends up.
I just don't know if there's a lot of future for her past the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
I think there could be. I think there could be.
We'll see.
Again, and it solely depends on
Yeah.
on the comps
Who's
and who
winning?
wins. Faven's proven that she can win comps.
Yeah.
So she's got a path forward.
Fletcher.
Okay. Unfortunately, I'm gonna keep this short and sweet.
Yeah.
I've adored having Fletcher on this season. I think he's absolutely killed it, especially for a first go around in a game. He's left such a mark on the season. Aside from how the end game plays out, I think like when we take a step back from the season and like look at like who were the major mover shakers power players, who are we remembering from the season, I think Fletcher will be one of the first names that comes to mind. Because and this is not a good or a bad thing for Fletcher, it unfortunately was a bad thing. A lot of this final 7, although I am very impressed with them, are playing more quiet games, whereas Fletcher was out there on the front lines since very early on, since like week 3. So unfortunately, that just caught up with him eventually. And once he was on the block, I think even his close allies were like, yeah, he's got to go now. Now that Alex is gone, done. So unfortunately, he did a good job campaigning, but literally not a single person considered keeping him, I don't think, except for maybe Jackson. But even then, Jackson, and we'll get to him, didn't push for anything. So, all that to say, I am going to be giving Fletcher the 1, but it is just because I don't think he had any wiggle room, and it is just his own grave catching up with him.
I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna go for the 2. I think that for me, a 1 is like you are actively doing things that it's like, yes, you should be going home. Fletcher was someone who was actively trying to better his game, and I don't think made any like serious faulty errors.
No, it just people were like,
And it's just how things shook out. Faven
it's
winning
how things
was
took out.
very
Yeah.
unfortunate for him, so that's why it's 2 for me. But
I agree with that, and I like that mentality. For me this season, I've like shifted a little bit to like, if you if he didn't have a shot to stay. There was nothing he could have done to stay. So I admire the effort, love Fletcher, but for me, unfortunately, that's just where I've
and
landed.
my focus usually shifts more towards the end of the season too, of like, yeah, well, we know what we're saying. Jackson.
Okay, Jackson. Um, I feel like I'm gonna be in the minority opinion here. The jury was talking, and at least Fletcher said that he was under the impression that like Jackson's playing the best game and should win. Um, I'm not a Jackson stan. I hate to say it, but for me, I'm just like, here's again, starting with the good. And again, to be clear, I'm giving Jackson a green score. When I say I'm not a Jackson stan, like that again, this is splitting hairs between these other people because they're all playing in the grand scheme, especially compared to people of the past or other, like very well. Um, for me, for Jackson, it's just he has an amazing ability to read what's going on, and it's incredible. He needs to do something about it. His game is just like sitting around and like, I see that Luke's in the best position. I hope someone takes a shot at him because that would be great. Or like Fletcher would be great for me to stay this week. Hope someone else comes up with a plan to flip the vote. I'm like, we're not doing
That was
anything.
never gonna happen.
It never gonna happen. You never know.
I guess he would have needed 3 other people to vote with him
Um,
against who else? Emily?
it was Emily. But all to say, those 3 people could have easily been,
Caroline, Luke, Caleb.
yeah.
Caroline was never gonna vote against Emily.
I think if
Like
points
it just was like realistically. I mean, you just said there's no way he was gonna stay.
and with the things that were going on, there was nothing that he could have done. He would have needed someone else to get the votes. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of my point with Fletcher. For me, Jackson is just unfortunately like continued. There was so much in the early game talking about making an alliance. Never
Sure.
happened. Talking about doing XYZ, talking about how X person is the big target. And I'm just like, we're not doing anything. And we're getting to the point now, we saw it on the double eviction. He's going to start finding himself in the block, and he's not going to have allies in this end game where, again, I've said it prior, no one has Jackson as their number 1 or number 2. Maybe not even number 3, really. But everyone is sitting with him as their number 4, which again, fine for now. But we saw is we were sitting in the final 8. Someone won HOA. They're like, okay, Jackson, you're just going to go up on the block because there's no blood on my hands. And then he got saved at the veto. But I think that that's going to become less and less, and he's not going to be able to do anything with it because everyone has other people. So all to say, it sounds like I'm tearing his game into shreds more than it is. Here's the positive side. I think the jury does like him. As of right now, you've got Isabel and Fletcher there, who I think are going to be huge components for him, like huge proponents. Which I think is good. And I think he is still in a great middle position where he could be okay for a while. I just don't see his position being good enough or him doing things actively enough to like really get himself to the end compared to some of these other people. So for me, I'm gonna be staying at my 6 again, but we'll see.
Yeah. I don't necessarily disagree with you. Um, do I think that Jackson is playing the absolute best game right now? No, I don't think that. I do disagree with you on the fact of I think he's here to stay. I think that maybe we might see more of him getting thrown up on the block. I think we're here to see Jackson more towards the end of the season. Um and like you said, we already have two big fans of Jackson on the jury, and that's out of four people so far. Um I think the part where I agree with you is that I think that he's really going to have to do something to say this is something that I did. He hasn't really done anything yet where he can like really take that huge ownership. And I'm expecting it more towards as we continue on. I don't know if we I would be surprised if we got to the end of the season and Jackson has done the same amount as we're sitting here now.
I wouldn't be, and
But we're
here's where
getting
I'm at.
but we're getting to that point. But I think Jackson is here to stay. I think Jackson has a great shot with the jury. I'm going to go up to a 7.
And that's not unfair. I was considering it. I just think that now that Caroline's gone, he's filled the Caroline position, is my take. I think of his side, quote, of because with Peace and Love, he has no relationship with the other side. Faven, Jason, and Joe have a 0% relationship with Jackson game wise. In terms of the other people, Luke trusts Kayla and Emily more. Emily trusts Luke and Kayla more. Kayla trusts Luke and Emily more. I think
That
Jackson's
was a
full of
really long way of saying the three of them trust each other more.
the three of them trust each other more than they trust Jackson. So I worried that like if he lands on the walk next to one of them, that's where I'm at.
Cool. Jason.
Jason, I stay being a Jason fan. I think that Jason, if we're I love this game of complaint of comparing people in the game to people of BBSS past. I said that Jackson's been playing a lot like EJ, which is a compliment. And for me, the comparison that I'm going to make for Jason is the icon, none other than Grace Fader. Season 9 Grace Fader was in a position where we were like, she's the biggest target, she's gonna have to go. And then like something would happen, and then she'd stay, and then like she'd happen to stay again, and she was always like the bottom of the totem pole and one of the biggest targets that people constantly talked about. But because she had one or two people that were fighting for her and were able to scrape her by in situations, she was able to make it there. I think Jason's odds are the same. I think Jason is a comp beast. I think Jason has Joe and Faven by their side. I think Jason has a good relationship with Emily, which I think is key. Jason has done a great job at like trying to salvage anything that's there to the point where like if it was Jason and Faven on the block, I think Luke's opinion of evicting Jason is going to outweigh Emily's. But I do think you have Emily be like, please, can we get rid of Faven over Jason? You know what I mean? I feel like he's done a good job socially with some of the other people in the house. Jason's got a good relationship with Kayla, a great relationship with Kayla that is like underrated. So there is certainly wiggle room for him. And if you give it to him, he's going to win the game. Jason has made the active moves. He has the active allies. It is just a matter of are they going to be able to form a path for themselves to actually get to the end? It's a tough path. But now that we're closer to the end game, we only have what? 2 more rankings after this, 3 more rankings after this. As we get closer to the end of the game, these rankings become more and more win equity. And I think that in terms of the game that the jury sees right now, Jason is the person that is winning the game right now. You know what I mean? So with all that to say, I was at a 5 last week. It's been a while since I've been up this high for Jason, but I'm back there. I am going to a 7 for Jason. Um, I just feel like he's got good allies on his side, no more or less than like other people do per se. Um, I think his target is huge. He is the biggest target left in the game, but that has to stop people before. So this is a 7 that, in full transparency, could come crashing down to a 1 next week. But I'm not gonna reward what could. I'm not gonna score what could happen. What is happening is he is in no worse of a position socially than some of these other people, and his win equity is way higher. It's just some people want him out.
Yeah.
Which, like, granted, that is part of it, but still, I'm impressed. So I'm at
I
7.
I do disagree with the Grace Fader comment. I
Hmm.
think that Grace was a case that we hadn't seen before, and I don't think we've seen since then, where she was literally trading off HOHs with being on the like nominated for eviction.
That's fair.
And Jason just has not had that status yet, I don't think. And it was at this point that I think it was the final 7 rankings where we were like, she needs to win out, or she's like, we were having trouble ranking her because we were like, she needs to win out, because if she wins out, she's winning the game. But if she loses a comp, like, she's going home. So it was like trouble. And then it didn't even end up being that way. Like, she was nominated at the final like 5 and stayed. So I wouldn't say Jason is like that yet. I think that going into this week, if the same thing about I said about Emily, of if there were a number of people, if the side went HOH, Emily was probably going to get put up, and Emily was probably going to be targeted. I feel like this other side, Jason is one of the people that, out of Jason, Faven, and Joe, is going to be have all of the missiles aimed at. So with that being said, I was at the 6 last week. I'm going to stay at the 6. I think he's done a great job this season with his allies, with the people he talks to. But I think his threat level is getting way too big for him to manage. And I really think we're going to see that this week. Coming out of the double eviction, like, people have been trying to target him for so long. He's been safe, yada, yada. His allies have won HOH. So the same way as, like, I would have been pretty confident in telling you that it would have, veto aside, it would have probably been Emily or Jason going home this week. I would have guessed. I have Jason higher because I think Jason has objectively been playing a better game, and he's done really well, and he's won a lot of competitions, and he's made a lot of moves that if he got to the end, he has a really good shot of winning. I don't know if we see Jason making a pass this week.
And that's true, and I hear that. For me, again, and like, in the idea of like again, I've had these scores in my notes locked since the end of the double.
Yeah.
Like, Jason was 1 answer away from winning HOH.
Yeah.
So, like, and in terms of Jason's odds in the veto coming up, not any war. Like, I'm
No,
not
I think
feeling
very
bad about
high,
Jason's odds.
I think actually out of the 6 veto players, I would put either Jason or Luke as the highest chance of winning.
Yeah, Jason, Luke, or Faven. In all honesty, Faven's been good at these comps.
So we'll see. Definitely not impossible for him to win. I just think that he's gonna continue to be targeted until the end of the game. And I don't know how that's gonna work out for him, but we'll see. Okay, 6.5 for Jason. Joe.
Joe, what a roller coaster of a ride it's been for Joe. What a roller coaster of a ride. What happened last week is what I suspected would be good for Joe. And that is Alex getting the fuck out of the game. Because, dear God, Joe, it's so clear, with peace and love to Alex, that, like, you are better off without her. Stop playing her game. Play your game. And now that Joe is, like, without Alex, and, like, still has the other deals on final 2s with Luke, with Faven, with Jason, trying to form something with Kayla. The fact that he's able to play the field and, like, isn't running things back to Alex and is, like, scheming with her, who has a huge target on her back, it's, like, it's extraordinary, like, how much better he's doing in the game, literally on the term flip of a dime. Um, I think I agree with you. So back to the conversation regarding Jason, Faven, and Joe. Again, knowing what we know now, it's a little different. But going into this week, not knowing who wins HOH, assuming it's one of the four being Emily, Jackson, Kayla, or Luke, they throw Jason and Faven up on the block. With Jason as the target for sure. And then if Jason wins the veto or Faven wins the veto, I think Emily and Jackson nominate Joe for sure. But I don't think Kayla and Luke do. Maybe Kayla does. But with all that to say, it's like he went from being the number one target in the game for weeks. For weeks. Should have gone home in week 4. Connor should have stayed. Like weeks. And now he's sitting in a not half bad position with a great story if he gets to the end. Not mad at the chances at all. I do think people are still looking to cut him, and where it's like, I think he might. I mean, actually, like, no, I don't know. Like, I would say that like Faven's number 1 is Joe. I'd say that Luke and Kayla are prioritizing Joe over Jason and Faven. So like he's got things going for him. I'll be interested to see what having Alex on the jury does for him, because like everything that I've heard from her, and again, this doesn't need to be turning into like the Alex shade party, but like, why do I have a gut feeling that if we get to the end, Alex is going to be like, yeah, Joe doesn't deserve to win, and I'm like, okay. So like I'll be curious to see how the jury plays in his favor, but I think that like if Joe were to get to the end, how do you deny the path that he's had in this game? How do you deny the fact that him getting to the end is impressive? I think there is only like on paper in terms of like people looking in. If Joe were to get to the end, I think it's only short of Jason's game in terms of people looking in and what they see from the outside right now. We'll get to the undertones a little later and all the secret stuff. That's what I have. That's what I have to say on Joe. I have 2 scores written here. So, Steven, I'd love for you to
Yeah,
speak.
I'd love to go first. Joe, I am very impressed with. The only thing I will say that I think might be keeping him down a little bit is he had 2 HOHs that did not go the way he
They
wanted.
flopped. Oh my god.
Very unfortunate. Getting Isabel out and getting Caroline out is kind of unfortunate. Positives. Coming into this week, he has Faven and Jason. He has a good relationship with Luke. Good enough, working relationship. He's got a pretty good talking relationship with Kayla. Like he's got people who are looking out for him.
I just had it my score for sure. Yeah.
And I think that I mean, I said this before. I think Joe was not gonna go home this week over either of the other 2, would be my opinion.
Not only that, I not only agree with you, I don't think, like intellectualizing it, Joe is the only person in the game that I think no one nominates this week.
Yeah.
Isn't that fucking crazy?
And I mean, you're right. I think some other people have played a better game than him, but I think he has probably the best story here.
Mm-hmm.
If he gets to the end, he has been nominated, what, 4 times, 3 times, 4 times?
I'm at
Been
least
saved. Well, hold on, let me see. Has been saved by 3 different people with the veto, which is crazy.
who? Alex, Faven,
And
recently.
Oh,
No, you're right.
and Luke.
And Luke. Yeah, damn, I forgot about that. That was
That's what we talked about last week.
yes, oh Lord, how could I forget that?
He has 2 HOHs. He's had to fight against his allies being targeted. He's blah blah blah, all these things.
He's overcome being able to rekindle relationships with the other side of the house.
Yeah. So it's crazy. I think this might be my highest jump ever. I was at a 3. I'm going to a 7 for Joe.
And yeah, I'll be real. I'm at a 7 with you. I think Joe's not in a bad spot. Here's the thing for Joe. The only flip side, and it is what we mentioned a little bit before. Joe is in a great spot right now.
Yeah.
Joe's biggest hurdle to overcome, in my opinion, is going to be like the final five, the final four. Because while he does have a lot of good relationships, it is the thing of clearly, like there are some people like, and spoiler alert, we've been saying it for weeks, like Luke, that I feel like are playing the best game, but has been hiding it well. That like you don't see clearly that you need to take out Luke. Joe, on paper, do not take him to the end. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's going to be his biggest hurdle to overcome, and I think everyone sees it, and I think everyone except maybe Faven cares.
So he regrets not taking a shot at Jason and Faven in the double.
Does
Thought.
he?
Yeah, that's what he said. He,
Oh,
or he
well, I
said,
think that would have been a bad move.
well,
So I
he
think,
said this is what he said. Hold on, let me figure it. Maybe I was on a call. No, I wasn't on a call with him. What am I talking about? He said, oh, I can't. Oh, since I can't talk in other chats, that is why we're waiting for the eviction. I did not need this HOH, bro. Like, even if Emmy put my ass up, that veto was easy to throw it to Faven. I was thinking a potential Jason backdoor, but I didn't know if I would have the votes. But looking now, I for sure would have. Fuck, might have just thrown my entire game away. But let's see.
and don't get me wrong, I hear that. The only blind spot for Joe is I feel like he is overestimating the relationship that he has with Luke and Kayla.
Yeah,
It is
for sure.
because
That is absolutely true.
the two of them have, specifically Luke, have done a great, they've screwed him over time and time again. But each time they screw him over, they're like, but the veto, I'm using it on you.
Yeah.
But the vote, I'm saving you. And they're able to like package up a little package that like he forgets the fact that he was like blindsided by them multiple times. So while I do agree he would have had the votes, I think it would have been the wrong move because you still need numbers. You know who Joe needs out of this game? Jackson, Emily. Like that's who Joe needs out of the
He's
game.
right.
Um, and exactly. So, and in all honesty, Caroline going, I think was not like, yes, he's upset about it. Not bad for him in the slightest. In the slightest. Um,
It's
so
funny.
I
He was talking on call today, and he like purposely, seriously underplays himself to like to other people. He's like, I have no like, come on, Luke. Like, I have no shot of winning this game. Like nobody's voting for me. Like I'm gonna get taken out probably. Like blah blah blah. And in his DR, he said, Steven, I'm fucking lying to his face right now.
and because it's true, and he does a great job at like there are times where he'll be on call with people, and afterwards I like text his DR and I'm like, I'm curious what your thoughts are. And he's like, oh, I was lying the whole time. I was like, wow, like I was fooled, and I have all the information in the game. So really impressive. 7 for Joe. I think his
Yeah.
prospects are high. I'll be interested to see how like these next few weeks play out for him.
Yeah. Very interesting line from Joe. Hmm. Okay. Kayla.
Kayla. Okay.
Oh, Kayla.
Okay. For me,
BB comic name.
getting this out of the way,
No, I don't think that would be a good catchphrase.
I think Kayla's winning chances took a hit this week. Just, I think for the this double wasn't great. like getting it out there in the space. We're talking about it.
But honestly, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Well, exactly. And I agree with that. But I think that like this
Nobody's like, Kayla's not here ever. Like, she held us up at the vote. Like, she's so inactive.
oh
Like, nobody's
no,
saying,
no, but I didn't
nobody's
expect
thinking
that
that.
either. But I do think like the only place where it's gonna come back to bite her is if she's in the final two chairs, especially if it's next to an ally. And I think if they look at it, they're like, okay, well, this person orchestrated everything, and this person wasn't here and then voted correct. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is the only thing that I think might come back to bite her in the ass. Here's the thing where for me, Kayla and Jackson are two players that are so like easily comparable to one another.
Sure.
Because for me, if you were able to take Jackson's reads and Kayla's position, you'd have Luke. But where I'm giving more points to Kayla over Jackson is Jackson is not actively trying to improve his position. Like Jackson could be reaching out to people and like getting a final two deal here and there. Whether or not he plans to keep it, like, who the fuck cares? But like, just having relationships with the other side of the house. Kayla has those relationships, right? Now, on the flip side, Jackson has the reads, so you might be like, oh, Kayla could be looking into the game a little more. She is, though. She is doing that extra spec that, like, she is making up for the thing that maybe she didn't have as much before, which is the information and the read on the house, and is killing it. She is telling Luke maybe a little more than I'd like, but, like, she's got the final two with Luke. She's got the final two with Joe. Maybe not real. She's got the good relationship with Jason. And in turn, Jason, I think, wants Faven to keep her around. Faven told her, was like, yes, I'm voting you out, but it's only because I need the other person here a lot more. And it didn't work. And then as soon as Faven won with HHUA, she was like, I've always been straight up with you. You are not touching the block this week. I am not nominating you at all. And I think that is going to help her. Positionally and gameplay wise, like, I've been a Kayla fan. I am staying a Kayla fan. I've been at a 7 for Kayla. I'm going to be at a 7 again. To be clear, of the 7s that I've ranked so far, she is the lowest of them for me at this point, because I do think her win chances are the lowest. But positionally and how she's playing the game are really impressing me. And I think that people should not just think that she doesn't deserve to win, because she's had a tough path, not by her own choosing. The first few days, sure, could have been more active, but like, has been talking, has wanted to be a part of it, and people weren't bringing her in, and now she is in. So I think she's a dark horse. Definitely not the most likely winner. I think is going to struggle the most in the jury. But where you say, Steven, like, I think Jackson's not going anywhere. I think he's sticking around. That's what I say about Kayla. I think Kayla is not going anywhere anytime soon and has a game to back it up.
I definitely agree with that too. I think that Kayla could be here to stay. My problem with Kayla is that I don't think anybody sees what she's doing, which is going to go against her, I think, in the end. I think that she's not doing enough of her own agency. She's talking to people, and she's talking to all sides of the house, which is awesome. She's talking with pretty much everyone right now, which is great. I don't really see what she's doing, though, if that makes sense. I don't necessarily see that if she gets to the end, people will not take her seriously, but against someone who has played a much bigger game and has also talked to quite a number of people, I don't know if she can pull it off. So I was at the 5 last week. We had 5 and 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was at the 5. I'm going to go up to a 6 because she survived the double. I do really think she's around to stay, but I don't know at this point if she can win the game.
The only reason why I'd say she has a better chance of someone like Jackson, where it's like, you say that like people don't see it. And I agree that people on paper, especially the people that are on the jury right now, per se, are like, Kayla, who? What has she done? But of the people left, like, Luke sees her game. Joe and Jason have been talking good about her for weeks. Faven's felt good about her for weeks. I think
I don't necessarily know if feeling good about a relationship means I'm going to vote for you in the end based on your game.
But they've been feeling good about her because they've pinpointed that, like, she's the one we need in the middle and it's like, it's not someone that they're stringing along. But all that to say, with that being said, I do agree. Should she end up in the final two next to Luke, Joe, Jason, any of those three, she can't beat them, in my opinion. She can't beat them. And I don't know how likely it is that someone of Emily, Faven, or Jackson, that they are there to like bring her to the end. Like, you know what I mean? So I just think her win likeliness isn't super high, but I think she's playing a better game than some of these other people, which is why I'm at the 7.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
She's had the same path as Jackson for quite a number of weeks.
And the two of them are playing similar. They've just got like,
yeah,
each of them fills the weakness that the other one has, essentially.
Yeah. Oh, I love saving the best for last. Luke.
I mean, give it like week after week. Dear God, killing it. Luke's my favorite. Luke should win. Period. I know I talked great about everyone else here, but fuck all that. Luke deserves to win the game. Luke should win the game. Luke should win the game. he is just playing everything nearly flawlessly. Nearly flawlessly. The only flaw, like the only thing that I say if he was playing perfect, if like everyone was good with him and no one saw what he's doing. And the reality is no one sees what he's doing except Jackson, who won't do anything about it. Sorry. And then everyone feels good with him except Jason, who granted Luke is targeting for that reason. So like there's a hole here and there, but they're holes that Luke pretty much sees or he won't need to worry about because Jackson won't do anything or have any allies to do anything with. And he's just killing it. The way he's able to like keep up relationships with all sides and get what actively wants, push for what he wants to be done, to get done, is insane. And it's great because no one sees him as a threat because he's doing such a good job at hiding the fact that he's doing it all. I mean, I could like go on and all of like the little itty bitty details of like why Luke is doing so good, but it would just be a lot of like reiterating the fact that he's got ties to Kayla, Joe, Jackson, Faven, in all honesty, and Emily. Um, he knows exactly what he needs to be doing for his game. He sees the correct path. Jason goes
He
here.
copped the final safety.
He copped the final safety. He's safe going into this next week. He knows that Jason is the one that he needs out first. Then he needs to take out Faven and Joe in 6 and 5. Then he needs to take out Jackson in 4, and he wants to be sitting final 3 with Kayla and Emily. Like that is the exact correct path that he needs, and I don't think it's entirely impossible because he's getting other people to like want that as well. It's incredible. I think probably for the like one of the few times this early in the game, there's still a lot left to go. I'm at a 9 for Luke, and I'm very confident with it. So it's
I was thinking you were gonna say 10. I'm at a 9 too. It is crazy. It's insane. And for someone who like he's such an interesting like person too, I feel like. Like I don't know.
He's someone that like
I wouldn't expect to be good. Is that I feel like that's not
it's not that I wouldn't expect him to be good because he does give good, if that's a thing. But it's like if you watch his intro, and I feel like if you were to put all of like the BBSS winners in a chat and like try and catch the vibes
Ooh.
and like the archetype of like, oh, who's generally won, he's not usually the person that wins.
Yeah.
But he's killing it.
Killing it. It's his game to lose. So we'll see. He needs, I mean, obviously everyone needs it's all dependent on competitions, and we'll see. But I think he's got a pretty good blocking behind him, around him, surrounding him, and has got a good plan in his head. We'll see. I'm excited.
If Jackson
He'd be an awesome winner.
He'd be great. If Jackson was able to rally troops and say like Luke is dangerous, sure, maybe. But the longer Jackson waits, the closer Kayla gets to Luke, the closer Emily gets to Luke, and he's not going to be able to rally them. And I think the sooner, in addition, Luke is going to be able to plant that Jackson's a threat that's been in the middle this whole time. I just think that the longer you wait to let a player like Luke gain momentum, which is what he's doing right this very second, gaining momentum with a capital fucking M, it's going to be over for these other people. So we'll see. Yeah. But he's killing it.
So that closes out our week.
Closes out the week.
Honestly, not as high as I thought they were going to be. Granted, a lot of
maybe not as. No, in all honesty, the fact that look at this final 7.
I guess 6 out of 7 people have a green score.
4, 6, 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, 7, 9. Easily, I think the highest. There's not. I'll look back at the rankings. I don't know when everyone except one has been in the green. I think all of these people, except one, have not equal as shown by their scores, but all good and not unlikely chances to win the game. That's insane. That doesn't happen often. Loving it. Loving it.
It's gonna make for a very interesting rest of the season.
I'm so excited to see how this.
And I don't think we've ever. It's been a long time since we've had an end game where everybody is going for it. Like
Yes.
people who are like people who I'm like hosting a comp for, and I'm like, why are you here? I'm like, why are you even doing this competition right now? You're gonna max out in an hour. Why are we sitting here?
And
That
they're
kind of
all people that deserve it. And even like, and again, I've been throwing like a little shade towards Emily this whole time. I'd still loop Emily in as someone that deserves it. She's
yeah,
been in alliances and doing things and pushing for things. Not as good as some other people, and I think there are definitely flaws, but like is not anyone that I would say like I wouldn't be happy if she ended up winning.
yeah. So we'll see. That's the end of the week, or the end of the rankings, not the end of the week, I guess.
Next week is not a double eviction. Let's get that on
We
the
have no
floor.
more.
We'll see what happens. We know that Luke is the HOH. Jason's probably the most likely boot, but maybe it's Faven. So we'll see if it's one of them two.
Kayla is not competing.
Uh,
Almost went the entire season without being chosen, which would have been crazy.
and did go the entire season without competing in a veto.
Yes.
Um,
Okay.
crazy.
All right. Bye.
Bye.